Welcome back to Elevate Inspiration for Sunday School. We're at Lesson 4. Our subject is, why do you doubt? I call this elevator inspiration because I try to keep this less than 10 minutes. So let's get started. Now, the content of our lesson, we are actually in Matthew, and it is actually Matthew, the 14th chapter. Now, at the beginning of the 14th chapter, if you read, you see that Jesus has received news from the disciples of John the Baptist that John the Baptist is dead. So no doubt this is really heavy on his mind. And then he get ready to send the people away because the disciples said, let's send them away. He said, no, we need to feed them because we're in a desert place. But wait a minute, the disciples are doubting and saying, hey, we don't have anything but 5 loaves and 2 fish. And Jesus takes that and he feeds 5,000 men, not counting women and children. So it is about 20,000 individuals. And then he sends those 12 disciples away and said, go to the other side while I talk to the people. This is where we are right now in Matthew, the 14th chapter, and we're going to start at the 22nd verse. 22nd verse says, immediately Jesus made his disciples get into boat, go before him to the other side while he sent the multitude away. Now realize now, the multitude of people, he fed them. They really want to make him a king. So he had to discourage this, send the people back to their homes. And notice the next verse, it says he goes off and he goes into the mountain to pray. And notice that it says, now when evening came, he was alone there. So let's paint the picture. The disciples are in the boat and it's evening and he's alone, he's in the mountain and he's praying. Like we had in lesson 2, we noticed that Sea of Galilee is no place to play because all of a sudden we see a storm arise. And the disciples are actually in the middle of the sea. And it says the wind was contrary. It's past midnight by now. They've been trying to get to the other side with no help. So the question I want you to think about is, after demonstrating such power to feed the multitude, why does Jesus pray? And in what ways can we use Jesus' practice of prayer in solitude as a model for our own devotion life? All right, now we're at verse 25. I want you to look at verse 25. Now we got a timetable there in the middle of the sea. It says it's the 4th watch. Notice that. Romans divided the days into 4. So the 4th watch is between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. So Jesus has been this time praying. The disciples have not made it to the other side, even though they left at sunset, and that's evening. Think about that. Now, they didn't have lights like we have today in time, so they got in the boat towards sunset. Jesus goes up and he prays past 12 to almost the next morning. He sees the disciples out there. No doubt there was no boats for him to catch. And it says, when the disciples saw him, he was walking on the sea. And they were so troubled by this because they thought they saw a ghost. And then he cried immediately, be of good cheer. It is I. Do not be afraid. Now I want you to notice that phrase there. Be of good cheer actually is more of a positive thing to do, whereas do not be afraid is a negative thing of not to do. I like that. So we have a positive phrase and we have a negative phrase. Be of good cheer, it is I. Do not be afraid. And then we have a curious disciple by the name of Peter, bold and curious. So Peter said, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water. So Jesus is walking on the water. Peter wants to experience that same. And notice what Jesus said. I want you to focus on the words of Jesus. He said, come. And then Peter gets out of the boat. He started walking on the water, and we saw the wind was boisterous. He was afraid and began to sink, and he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And notice, immediately Jesus stretched out his hand, caught him, and said, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? So if you paint the picture and you paint the scene here, if you notice now that he's walking on the water, we're almost at 6 a.m. in the morning. No doubt the sun is probably getting ready to rise. Peter sees him, and he wants to experience the same thing. We're looking at the storm. It's storming, it's wind, it's boisterous. And we see Christ walking on the water. You know, that's revelating. When you think about in scripture, there's no other person walks on water except Jesus. We look in Moses, we see Moses part the sea. We even see Joshua parts the water of Jordan. We see Elijah and Elisha actually do something with water. But never have we recorded a person walking on water. So Peter says, I want to try that. And then if you notice that, when the wind started blowing, it says the wind was boisterous, then he became afraid and began to sink. And notice Jesus' reaction. O you of little faith, why did you doubt? I underscore the word immediately because when he cried out, Lord, save me, immediately Jesus rescued him. And then he questioned him. O you of little faith, why did you doubt? So I want you to think about that. Although Peter began to sink, is there anything remarkable about his experience? And then I want to dig a little bit deeper on Sunday. What does an examination of the triangular relationships among faith, doubt, and fear reveal that you should do? When you look at that triangular, and you look at doubt, and you look at fear, and you look at faith, as all together, what does that tell us? What should we do about that? And then what aspects of this lesson challenge you most in terms of personal application? And how will you respond to this challenge? You know, when we think about this lesson and we look at it from a calling out for help, as Peter did, is doubt a symptom of inconsistent faith? You know, Peter, it says he called out, Lord, save me, because he had faith at the beginning, but later he doubted. But Jesus' power was greater than Peter's doubt. Think about that. His power was greater because it says immediately he stretched forth his hand and helped him. And then I also realized that trusting the Lord is harder to maintain when negative things test our faith. And that was a distraction. The boisterous wind still was storming. Because if you notice, if you read further, is once he got into the boat, and I always ask the question, how did Peter get back to the boat? He walked on water. And then once they got in the boat, it says everything calmed down. So when you experience doubt, did you call out to the Lord like Peter did? So my lesson learned from this is this. I want to start back thinking. When was a time I experienced faith and doubt simultaneously, as seemed to have happened to Peter? So I want to take inventory. I want to look at my life and see when did I experience those things simultaneously. And then I'm going to remember Peter. Think about this. Whether Peter doubted his ability to continue to walk on water or doubted Jesus' ability to keep him afloat, his doubt minimized his faith. So in that case, I must always allow my faith to minimize my doubt, even when distractors appear. Hey, this has been great. And like I always say, I try to do this within 10 minutes. So our thought to remember is cry out to Jesus who overcomes our doubt. Remember that. Cry out to Jesus who overcomes our doubt. I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been a great lesson. Actually, like I always say, see you in Sunday school. Remember now we have our Zoom session at 6 p.m. on Sunday. The meeting ID is 642-382-0755. And our passcode is CU123. Have a great day.